afternoon to you. Thanks for joining Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a great day. Browns getting ready to open up training camp out in West Virginia a month from tomorrow. Take a listen to this. Colin Cowherd from The Herd with Colin Cowherd with his AFC North predictions.
AFC North. I think this is I think the Ravens are great, but I don't think they have Joe Burrow. Also, Baltimore worries me a little, so I have Cincinnati, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. I don't buy Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. The market loves him. I don't. Schedule's pretty easy. Don't love him. Baltimore concerns me because most of their top offensive players, except Mark Andrews, the tight end, have an injury history. So I'll go Cincinnati, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland.
With that, let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, AFC North's a tough division. I think there's going to be a little bit of a transition period for the Ravens with Lamar Jackson playing in a different offense under Todd Monken. I still want to see that.
Well, the first thing I'll say with the Ravens is what happens when the passing game isn't clicking early and Lamar Jackson's going to revert to what Lamar Jackson has done best in the NFL and say, you know what, if it's not there, I'm going to make it happen with my own two legs. We've all seen what's happened with a certain wide receiver who's now in Baltimore when the amount of targets do not go his way. But look, there is a huge, huge talking point there. You know, Lamar Jackson has been in the same offense his entire NFL career. I think we all believe maybe he's satisfied and whatever maybe the injuries were and maybe how long it was taking him to recover from them. I think we all agree that is probably put to bed here now. But to go into a brand new offensive system, and look, the Ravens, they have no idea. Here we are in year 5 of Lamar Jackson, and year 6, and the Baltimore Ravens still have no idea what kind of wide receivers suit Lamar Jackson. They may never figure it out, and it probably might not be an issue because they'll be a perennial playoff team every year. But, you know, and the other question is, you know, some of these guys coming off their injury. Look, I mean, there's a lot of guys in the NFL coming off injury history. You can't really base it on that. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody ever knows what's going to happen. But yeah, those rankings certainly had some interesting points to them.
Yeah, and again, Colin's Colin. So okay, you know, you can make a case for the Bengals. You can make a case for the Ravens. If you really believe in Deshaun Watson, you can make a case for the Browns. The Steelers, Mike Tomlin's going to have them around 500 because he always does. He's just a good coach. So, but again, I found this really interesting. Bleacher Report, best NFL future bets to make before training camp arrives. Odds courtesy of DraftKings, Browns plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. Rationale is when you take into account the talent this team has, as well as the fact that this will be Deshaun Watson's first full campaign with him, it's silly. They say it's silly that 15 other teams possess better Super Bowl odds than the Browns. I think that's absolutely fair. If you look strictly at the roster, the Browns have one of the better rosters in the NFL. Quarterback play matters that much in the NFL, though.
Well, and the question is where does Deshaun Watson return back to form? And I don't think anybody thinks, 2020 is what the expectation is for Deshaun Watson, and I don't think that's really an issue. But I've gone through a couple episodes past episodes here at Locked On Browns, and this is the point I'm trying to get. And look, I get it. We went through this. Everybody thought 2019 for the Cleveland Browns was going to be great. Yeah, it all fell apart and it looked terrible. Everybody thought 2021 after 2020 was going to be great for the Cleveland Browns, and guess what? It looked terrible. Yes, last year you kind of understand the circumstances were very awkward, but you look at what has been done, and to think, if Deshaun Watson comes in and gives you what is a normal Deshaun Watson season, he becomes the all-time passing yards leader for the Cleveland Browns in one season. He becomes the all-time touchdown passing leader for the Cleveland Browns in one season. If you just get average Deshaun Watson, if you take all of his years in the NFL and you put it together, if you get average Deshaun Watson play, this team is 100% a contender for the AFC North, and in my opinion, probably a contender or a favorite to win the AFC North, because they did more to their roster than any other team in the AFC North did.
Yeah, I understand it, and I agree with you. All right, this from NFL.com. 10 franchises with the greatest burden of expectation for 2023. The urgency meter on a scale of 0 to 10. Bills, urgency meter is 10. Jets, urgency meter 9.8. Eagles, 9.6. Bengals, 9.4. Browns are fifth. They say 9.0. The rationale, I expect Watson to play at a high level and make the Browns a contender in the AFC this season. But if, after all this, Watson flops or is merely league average quarterback, heads might roll in Berea. I mean, you could say that about anywhere in the NFL. If you're expected to win and you don't, changes follow. But I would disagree. If I'm with you, if he gives you what people aren't looking at, the last 2 years where the Browns have been very disappointing. Baker Mayfield gave you subpar quarterback play. Might have been because he was injured, but it was subpar. Mm-hmm. Jacoby Brissett's quarterback play was pretty good. The defense was historically bad against the run. I mean, those are two things they addressed.
That was a focal point. I mean, we're not talking, added, 2 defensive starters on defensive line. And at the time, everybody thought Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo was going to be a starter in the defensive line. So that's 3 starting caliber players on the defensive line. You had a major issue at free safety because you didn't have one. No disrespect to John Johnson. What the Browns wanted him to do was, it was a foolish move to make because you were asking somebody to play something that you had never seen before. He didn't have the athletic profile to excel in it. And when John Johnson III had good games is when John Johnson III played similar to the tape we saw for him for the Los Angeles Rams. So major upgrades all around over there. Now, you talk about Alex Wright, you talk about Isaiah McGuire. These guys were, right around top 100 picks. These guys are now contending for the 4th and 5th edge spot on this defensive line. That is a great, great spot to be in. If they can get any defensive tackle to step up and at least show something next to Dalvin Tomlinson, it'll be light years. It'll probably be the best defensive tackle duo the Browns have had since I've covered this team, and this is now my 7th season covering this team. I mean, I'm tired, and I get it. I think there is just so much, LOL Browns, same old Browns, that nobody's going to believe it until they see it. And I truly understand it, but that doesn't mean that my beliefs are going to change. And I think this is going to be a highly successful franchise, and they have a real good opportunity to shake the stigmatism of what they are within their first 5 games.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. When you look at the difference from last year to this year, most important addition, what is it?
And it's actually funny you brought this up. I just did an episode the other day. And ironically enough, I think the biggest addition when we probably need to talk about this team as the year goes on, maybe when the year is over, is that the biggest addition was the one that was already there. The biggest addition is getting Deshaun Watson to play to the level that most people are comfortable with him. Most people feel the expectation is for him. The last 6 weeks, 3-3. Look, 3-3 isn't terrible. And to think he was 3-3, and he certainly looked like a shell of the quarterback we've known. I think there's a lot of people that believe that's just what's left. I personally, at his age, think that's just a farce. I think there is a lot more there. Do I think he's going to ever surpass his 2020 stats? No. But I think the biggest addition is that the Browns can be a true force by throwing the ball first. And then all of a sudden, when you're resting on your laurels, and now you're asking your defensive backs to take a couple steps back further from when they normally line up because they can't stop Amari Cooper. They can't stop Elijah Moore. They can't cover David Njoku. They're having problems with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Okay, now you're tired. You're winded. You've been running all over the field. I'm going to pull Wyatt Taylor around the left end, and Nick Chubb's going to be behind him. So good luck with that.
Yeah, and again, it's a little bit of a different way of getting to Nick Chubb. It's not going to be Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb will still be a force in this offense. All right, before we go to break, this from Field Yates, ESPN.com. One last NFL roster move for each and every one of the 32 NFL teams. For the Browns, add depth at defensive tackle, while the team added a star in Dalvin Tomlinson, a massive run stuffer in Siaka Ika in the 3rd round of the draft. One more contributor to solidify that rotation would go a long way. There are quality options available, including Shelby Harris and Ndamukong Suh. I can't argue with that line of thought.
Well, I mean, I think the Ndamukong Suh one is certainly intriguing. Obviously, there is the matchup there. You know what I'm saying? He spent his time in Detroit with Jim Schwartz. The only question is when does Ndamukong Suh feel like showing up? And if this is a guy who's going to wait till the season starts, maybe it's a position the Browns can't be in. But right now, yeah, the Shelby Harris talk should be the one the Browns, want to be in as well. But, for Shelby Harris, maybe this is another one where, look, I don't want to come until August. And, when you've put in an X amount of years, it's understandable. But, yeah, I mean, I could not agree more with the position of defensive tackle being the biggest need. And you can find any way to get one of those guys, or maybe even two of them, do a similar move to what the Eagles did last year by bringing in Sue and Linval Joseph. And look, if it doesn't work out, if one of the younger guys beats him out, hey, it is what it is. You paid a guy for the opportunity to make your roster. But defensive tackle, if you can get one more name in here and not have to hopefully rely, because we've been doing this year in, year out now, relying on Jordan Elliott, you're relying on Tommy Togiai, relying on Perrion Winfrey. To get a proven commodity in here, I think would ease a lot of people's minds.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, everyone. You have to beat the top dog to get to the top, and the Bengals are that team in the AFC North. My set of questions is, why have we beaten the Bengals the last couple of years, with the exception of our last meeting? Does this roster and new coaching staff have enough to continue our success against them? They also have a first-place schedule to deal with as well that can only help our chances of winning the division. That first game is going to be a great litmus test to open the season and a confidence builder if we take care of business. Go Browns!
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, to the question of why the Browns have been successful, not many teams have the secondary that can handle Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, because you got to have a big guy that can be a little bit physical with T. Higgins. Martin Emerson can do that now. You got to have somebody that can run, at least keep up with Jamar Chase. So I think there's and the Bengals have had no answer for Myles Garrett.
I think you hit the nail on the head finally with the last one. Look, and I don't know if that's changed with Orlando Brown Jr. Orlando Brown Jr. is a nice left tackle, but in his matchups with Myles Garrett, the amount of times he's gotten his hands on Myles Garrett is not much. So I don't think they upgraded the offensive line. And you got to keep in mind, even if the Browns do feel Orlando Brown Jr. is an upgrade, okay, you took Jonah Williams, who's always been a liability, from the left side, you put him on the right side. So guess what? We're going to flush the right side. Look, the Bengals, it is Joe Burrow, it is Jamar Chase, it is T. Higgins. That is what that entire roster is built on. The other reason the Browns have always matched up well is the Bengals, and not a lot of teams can say they have a good linebacking unit, but keep in mind the linebacker position is not viewed in today's NFL by a lot of defense coordinators and a lot of front offices the way the Bengals view it. So obviously for them to have a good linebacking unit, this is something they are trying to achieve. But being a good linebacking unit, they've always had the problem stopping Nick Chubb in the run game, which means all of a sudden now the Browns are in control. They control the clock. They run more plays than the Bengals do. So you set up the Bengals to obviously be in obvious passing situations where you can let Myles Garrett feast, and he's certainly done that. Now, Myles Garrett, even though we all still feel like he's going to feast, he's got a lot of friends who should be coming to the feast as well, in Zadarius Smith, in Dalvin Tomlinson, in Okoronkwo. So I think the Browns, and I took a lot of heat from Bengals fans. I think the Browns match up even better now than the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's not also talk about the Cincinnati Bengals right now are going to put out a brand new back line of their defense, 2 brand new safeties. They had Dax Hill, didn't really play safety last year. He is certainly not going to be the player Jesse Bates is right out of the gate, even if he reaches that. They brought over, Scott in free agency from the Rams. Not a bad player, but I think Von Bill has always been a very, very underrated player. So the Bengals are going to come into week 1, breaking in a new safety duo, having a defense that's really never been able to stop Nick Chubb. The Browns should have more advanced quarterback play, and which should lead to the same situation it's always been. The Browns are able to just come after the quarterback because they seem to always be able to control the game, get up early, and basically dictate the script of the game.
Yeah, the other thing is the Browns have not historically started off the season the way you'd want to. Last year, the first year they won week 1 in a while. How important are those first 5 games? I mean, they're critical, aren't they?
Well, number one, you're trying to, and look, everybody in that locker room can believe it. Everybody in that front office can believe it. Everybody in that coaching room can believe it. But until it comes down to what your record is, nobody else is going to believe it. And you start off with 2 division games. The Tennessee game they look like a team that's probably, in a whole disarray of not knowing exactly where the future of their franchise is, but still a dangerous team. Then you come back with Baltimore. We'll see what that version of Baltimore is. Then the bye week, then San Francisco. If there's any weaknesses, if you have any questions about your team, about your roster, are they tough enough? Are they physical enough? Well, go play the San Francisco 49ers, because then you're going to find out the answers to those questions. Probably the most physical and best tackling team in the entire NFL. You walk out of that 3-2, God forbid 4-1, or you reverse both of those records. Now you have all the naysayers out there saying, we told you so again. And now you have a locker room that's maybe not believing in themselves the way they need to. They need to start off, because if they can start off good, they can start off with a solid record good, they can maybe kind of find a way to kind of sneak away and hide, because as the caller mentioned earlier, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to face a first-place schedule.
Yep, without question. All right, this is from CBS Sports, ranking the NFL's best triplets. So they do that as a quarterback, a running back, and a pass catcher. The Browns check in at tier number 5, pretty good with some questions, and their triplets are Watson, Chubb, Cooper. No idea what anybody should expect from Watson. He essentially did not play football for about a year and a half. Can he rediscover the form at all? There appears to be at least a mild degree of confidence that he can from the Browns. The Steelers were ranked 22nd. That's Pickett, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson. The Ravens ranked 8th with Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, and Mark Andrews. 14 seems pretty low. I get what Watson did last year, but it's not like he's 32 years old, 33 years old. He should be entering the prime of his career. Chubb's, I'm going to say, is the best running back in the NFL. We can debate that. And Amari Cooper is extremely underrated.
Well, the thing here is, how do you say the Browns ranking with Deshaun Watson hasn't played football in a year and a half? When is the last time Odell Beckham Jr. played football? Oh, well over a year and a half ago. But there's a past there. How much football has Lamar Jackson played the last 2 years? J.K. Dobbins is coming back off of a year where he was rust after the year he missed with the ACL, and they weren't sure when he was going to get. So it's like, how do you put that verbiage into one thing? And to keep in mind, Deshaun Watson didn't miss football because of injuries.
Right.
I mean, Lamar Jackson did. Odell Beckham Jr. did. J.K. Dobbins did. And the best player of all that bunch over the last couple of years, you drop all the way down. Nick Chubb's been the best player of all 6 of those names the last few years. I mean, sometimes, look, and I get it's the offseason. Content still has to be created. But, I mean, can you look at what you're writing when you put out some of these things? Because you're basically knocking one team's group for a player missing almost a year and a half when Odell Beckham Jr. has missed about a year and a half, but coming off an injury where Deshaun Watson just wasn't physically playing.
All right, PFF tweets this out. Which is the most underrated receiving core? They go Steelers, Jets, Commanders, Saints, other, Panthers, Lions, or Browns. Most people have the Browns ranked in the bottom third of receiving groups. And while I get they don't have the flashy names, they've got some guys that do different things.
The Browns two wide receivers, and I will never say, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, because I think it's going to be kind of a 1A, 2A, 2B type of thing with Elijah Moore, and nobody wants to bring up the fact that Browns. But they had over 1,000 yard receiving between Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper, and they played with a second-string quarterback for the first 11 weeks. And believe it or not, that is when most of the damage was done. Again, this is a question of what you think Deshaun Watson is capable of. Me personally, I've said it before, I'll keep saying it. I think Elijah Moore is going to lead this team in receptions in the 2023 season. Is he going to lead them in yardage, touchdowns? I can't answer those questions, but I'm pretty confident that he's going to lead this team in receptions. And this might be one where you go back and you look at it a couple months into the season, or you look at it at the end of the season and like, wow, well, that was, kind of interesting and, certainly off the beaten path. Browns receiving corps is good. It is going to be a really, really solid unit. And when you look at the possibility of putting 11 personnel on the field of Nick Chubb, David Njoku, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, look, I mean, you can give me some of the best teams in the NFL putting out 11 personnel. I would put that 11 personnel right up there, probably top 10, maybe even top 5. Established guys who've gotten it done. And probably, in my opinion, if somebody's going to be a star, a gadget, a Percy Harvin type of guy, that when teams are going to sleep on Elijah Moore, he's going to eat you alive.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree wholeheartedly. I am anxious to see how Kevin Stefanski designs this offense. Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take another timeout. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll listen in to Juan Thornhill mic'd up during minicamp. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Well, Mustafa, 50-year Browns fan, go Browns. I just got an opportunity to watch one of the clips from the Cleveland Browns IG page, and I saw Jim Schwartz, and he was interacting with the offense. He was talking with Amari Cooper. He was out there active with the defense. I like the camaraderie that's going on this year. I feel the excitement. There's something different in the air about the culture, and just want to know what you guys think about that. What do you think about Jim Schwartz's energy that he brings to the entire team, not just the defense, but to the entire Browns team? Go Browns. Thanks.
Always appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, we showed that yesterday as well. I would also say not only Jim Schwartz, Bubba Ventrone, and I think you want a mix of personalities in your coaching staff as well, and I think they went out and did that.
Look, and it's not even so much the way, Jim Schwartz is carrying himself on the field. It's who Jim Schwartz is. It's what Jim Schwartz's resume is. Now, if this was a younger guy without the track record, a first-time DC, look, nobody in professional sports likes a phony. And, whether they believe Jim Schwartz is a phony and maybe, the way he acts on the field is real or not, none of it matters. It has nothing to do with any of it. It has to do with the fact that, hey, that man has led a defense to a Super Bowl. That man was a head coach. That man has coached this man. He has coached this man. He has coached this man. He has coached this man. This guy knows how to coach defensive football, and this guy has been around a lot of winning football. Jim Schwartz could be out there, painting with watercolors if he wanted to. The point is they respect the individual that he is, the track record that he has, and I think the biggest thing that Jim Schwartz has done to win over players on that defense is basically said, look, I'm going to try to keep this as simple as I possibly can for you because I think you're all superior players. I think you all are great athletes. So last thing I'm going to do is bog down your mind. I want you guys to focus on one assignment, ball snapped, go do what you do.
Yeah, and you know what? They haven't been on the field. You already get a sense of what this defense's personality is going to be. And it's another one. I want to see it. I can't wait to see it. One of the new guys that the Browns signed, Juan Thornhill, was mic'd up during one of the days at minicamp. This is from the Browns YouTube page. Let's listen in to Juan Thornhill.
Yo, Ty, I see you. What's up? I was looking like I know you out here somewhere, but I don't know where you at yet. I'm going to show y'all a trick. I learned that when I was a kid. Let's go. Start this fast. You will give us about 2 or 3 today. You gonna give us about 2 or 3 today. Watch, you gonna give us 2 or 3. TFL, TFL, TFL. Oh, that was a pick. Hey, I'm here, I got to do in the back. Y'all here? Hey, y'all here? He was definitely about to go. He had the eyes inside, boy. That boy was looking inside. He was going. He was looking just like it. Yeah, I'm going. Y'all know we win these right here now. Come on. Y'all let him in there. We do it. Yeah. Hey. What we doing, dog?
And, Jeff, it's easy to see that guy's a leader. And that was Deshaun Watson, who he was telling they were going to give him a couple, and TFL's tackles for loss. So there's some confidence in your safety, and you better have a lot of confidence because you're going to be the last line of defense a couple of times.
I mean, I've always been a sucker for, defensive backs that can't shut up. And even they give up a 25-yard reception, get called for pass interference, and they turn around and they are still yammering. And it's just, look, some guys aren't wired that way. It's just not in their nature. But, it works out great. Certainly when you're winning, and obviously Juan Thornhill, this has probably been his personality in Kansas City, where I'm sure it played really well. But, maybe it always doesn't play so well when the team's not winning. But even the other thing was the flip. I mean, you want to see what kind of athlete Juan Thornhill is, go to YouTube. Search Juan Thornhill high school basketball. And you will see Juan Thornhill out there. I mean, just a ridiculous basketball dunker. Juan Thornhill is a player. He's intelligent. Look, you see, and this is really early in the infancy, he's moving players around on that defense. So obviously he's a student of the game. His nose is in the playbook. He knows what he's doing. This is going to probably, in my opinion, and again, it's not a knock on John Johnson because you were asking him to do things that he was basically not able to do. You've got that guy now in Juan Thornhill. And this should, lead to hopefully a defense that can create more turnovers, and they desperately need that.
He has, he's got the type of personality that if the Browns have some success, I think you just looked at what's going to be a fan favorite.
He will be the guy everybody wants to talk to after Sunday. It'll be Myles Garrett, it'll be Deshaun Watson, and it'll be Juan Thornhill, no doubt.
Yep, I agree with you. All right, this is kind of interesting as well. This is Warren Sharp from Sharp Football. Losses after leading by 13-plus points from last year. Raiders lost 4 games where they had 13-plus point leads. Browns, Ravens, Bears, Cowboys, and Lions, 2 apiece. You can't do that. When you get up 10, 12, 15 points, you got to win those games.
Well, some of this comes down to, the lack of the defensive line play the Browns had last year. Jadeveon Clowney not contributing for anywhere close to the $14 million that the Browns gave him. And, a lot of that was what was the blueprint, right? We should get up, and that's what we're going to have to be able to defend the pass. Browns went into this offseason with the same theory, but they handled it better. You know what I'm saying? With I can rush Myles Garrett. I can rush Zadarius Smith. I can rush Ogbonnia or Okoronkwo. I have Alex Wright. I have Isaiah McGuire. I have 3 safeties I am confident in putting on the field. I have 3 cornerbacks minimum I am confident in putting on the field. The Browns set this up to have a really good nickel and dime package for themselves if they want to. And, everybody base defense, and I hear about, the Browns and a linebacker. You don't necessarily want those guys on the field. You want to be ahead. You want teams to throw the ball 50 times a game on you because that means you are ahead by a substantial amount. And you want to get better athletes on the field, i.e. pass rushers, secondary players. And the Browns are built on defense to do just that.
You mentioned Jim Schwartz simplifying defense. That's why to me, when you have first-round draft picks that are athletic, that are talent, that have a lot of talent, don't you just let them go out and play? I mean, don't make it too difficult. There's a reason that you got the number 1 overall pick, the 4th pick in the draft. You traded up to get a linebacker. Just go out and let them play. You've got talent.
If my 11 is better than your 11, why do I have to beat you at the chess aspect of it? I should be able to beat you at the checkers aspect of it. Granted, you're going to play some of these teams twice in the season. Some of these teams you might even play a 3rd time in the season. You're going to face them in the postseason after they have taped the 17 games. Yes, then you're going to have to maybe get a little more creative. You're going to have to switch things up. But if your belief is, mine is better, why do I have to do anything differently? You know what? Until you beat my 11 with your 11, that's when I'll alter things. But for right now, I want my 11 to be comfortable. I want their minds clear. I want them to see, read, and react. And, it sounds stupid. It sounds cliche, but, keep it simple, stupid. Why do more than you have to do if you feel you have the better assets?
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Happy summer, everybody. We'll talk soon. Jeff
Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff on the Locked On Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Cory Kinnan from BrownsWire.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. One of my pet peeves when it comes to football is when media or fans say easy schedule or easy opponent. We've all watched enough football to know that any team can beat you. I know that's cliche to say, but it's the truth. An example is last season when the Colts beat the Chiefs. But the Colts were a bad team. Or when, quote-unquote, we barely beat the Texans, but the very next week the Texans took the Cowboys to overtime. My point is that there's no such thing as an easy schedule. Even the great Ray Lewis said that. Now, how do you feel about labeling schedules easy or hard? Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Cory Kinnan from BrownsWire.com. And Cory, the reality of it is you have an idea of how the teams are, but every year there's 2 or 3 teams or 4 teams that play a lot better than you thought they were going to, or guys get hurt. And, later in the year it's a quote-unquote easier game.
Yeah, I mean, I think people just run with the strength of schedule thing, and I think there's a natural tendency to want to do that, and I think there's value in that. I mean, that's literally how the NFL tries to balance out competitive natures. They give the last place team the last place schedule, the third place team the third place schedule. I mean, it is a thing. But again, things happen. There are those teams every year that come out of nowhere. There are those injuries that derail a season. And for the Browns, I guess, since this is a Browns show, you can say, yeah, we have the fourth place schedule, but again, we can talk about this team's only going to go as far as quarterback play. This team's only going to go as far as health, things like that. So there are always those wild card factors as well.
All right. You wrote an article piecing together thoughts from a long off season. Let's kind of go through that. So the first 2 points, cornerback depth has worked itself out, and what does the lack of urgency to upgrade the linebacking position mean? So take us through those two as you wrote that article.
Yeah, so speaking about the cornerbacks, I think it was pretty obvious. Greg Newsome wasn't happy playing in the slot, exclusively in the slot. And we can say all we want about him being committed to Cleveland, and I believe that he is, but there's a reason he changed agents, and there's a reason Drew Rosenhaus was in Cleveland for that one little meeting that they had. That wasn't coincidence. Drew Rosenhaus wasn't just perusing the building. He's been there a million times before. So, but again, with the shift in defensive scheme, and with Denzel Ward kind of saying in press conferences like, "Oh, I'm going to be in the nickel a lot more as well." So, I think they've kind of worked it out where it felt like if Newsome's not in the slot, what does that mean for the depth then? And they don't have a nickel. And, you know, Martin Emerson is long, but that doesn't, and he's physical, but that doesn't necessarily lean itself towards playing in the slot. You got to be twitchy. You got to play inside. You got to be outside. So you kind of have to have more fluid hips. So, you know, it left a lot of us. It left me saying like, well, this has got to play itself out one way or the other if you have three guys who all want to play outside. But with Newsome still playing some reps in the slot, but with the Browns deciding we're going to match based on personnel across the ball from us, and Ward's going to go inside. Emerson's still going to see the field plenty. Newsome's still going to see the field plenty. So it's kind of worked itself out based off of scheme change and based off of tendencies to match inside rather than just saying you are the nickel in nickel packages, you are the outside guy in outside package. Like, they're both going to be in there, and so and that's going to get Emerson on the field plenty. So there's no need to do anything, you know, because when the Jerry Jeudy stuff was going on as well, it's like, oh, you got to trade Newsome, you got to trade Emerson to get Jerry Jeudy, but now it's just like we're going to keep all three, and they're all three going to see the field plenty.
What about the linebacker? You know, they didn't really address that. What do you think that says?
Yeah, I think it says that they believe that an improved defensive front will keep the linebackers cleaner, or that they believe that Anthony Walker truly was playing at a high level, which he was, but for 3 weeks before his injury, or that they believe in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, which they should. He's displayed that he can be plenty explosive. Can he play 17 games? That's still a question, but he's definitely their best linebacker in coverage. He's definitely the most explosive linebacker. He's shown some unbelievable moves to get off blocks and to keep himself clean from blocks. But I do think it really just does say, you know what, we're just going to re-sign Walker, we're going to re-sign Takitaki, and we're going to run it back. I think that says more about the defensive line than the status of the linebacker room. I think it's a risky move because I do think that the linebacker room is now your weakest spot on the roster. But again, Anthony Walker, can he stay healthy? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, can he stay healthy? Sione Takitaki, when he gets back, can he stay healthy? Jacob Phillips, can he stay healthy? The answer was no to all four of those guys a year ago. But I think it says a lot that they might believe in their depth as well. Again, Tony Fields, the second started when Sione Takitaki went down. Sione Takitaki kicked into Mike and started at Mike when Anthony Walker Jr. and Jacob Phillips went down. So, and he played well. I think Sione Takitaki was playing the best football of his career at that point. So I think it says that they think they have the depth, and the young guys they have seen enough that they believe in that if they have to see the field, which again, Fields is going to have to, because I don't think Takitaki is going to be healthy at the start of the season. They think that they can run with that.
Yeah, and you know they're going to use a lot of 2 linebacker and 3 safety sets as well. All right, same article. You had 2 more points. Let's go through. How many wide receivers do you think will make the Browns roster? And then Kevin Stefanski won't see the 5th year of his contract. Take us through those 2 points.
Yeah, so let's start with the wide receivers. I think they roster at least 6. I think you can make an argument for a 7. So we know the locks are Amari Cooper. We know the lock is Elijah Moore. We know the lock is Cedric Tillman. We believe the lock is Donovan Peoples-Jones. And based off of his play last year, you say, yeah, he's going to be here. And I would say that unless they get an offer they can't refuse, you know, entering a contract year, they just drafted a receiver. They traded for another young receiver. So they've given themselves some depth, and they drafted a 3rd rounder last year in David Bell. David Bell's going to be here this year. I see a very slim chance that he's not on the roster. And I believe that Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be here. Whether he gets an extension is a different conversation, but he'll be here, I believe, in this year. I think it goes back to kind of what we looked at with Kareem Hunt. Based off of what was on paper, there was no reason for the Browns not to trade Kareem Hunt. he's not here this year. He saw 155 touches last year, and it was probably the worst football of his career. So, but the Browns pretty much dig their heels in when they say, well, we don't get the value in our trade, so why would we trade him for what we don't think is value? And I think that's probably going to be similar to what is going to be with Donovan Peoples-Jones again after this year. I don't know, but I think he'll be here this year. And so that mentions six receivers that we talked about, and they did rework Jakeem Grant's deal. So he's got a little bit more guaranteed money. It's not non-negotiable. They could still cut him, but he is an all-pro special teamer. Do they want to keep the all-pro special teamer? Do they like Jalen Darden enough, the guy they claimed off of waivers last year? Do they like him enough to keep a seventh receiver? So it can get sticky where I could see a pathway where seven receivers can make the roster.
And then take us through the thought where you say Kevin Stefanski won't see the fifth year of his contract.
Yeah, it's extension or bust after the season. So I don't see any pathway where the Browns say, you know what, we'll run it out for this fifth year and see what happens. I think if they make the playoffs, he's going to get a new deal. If they don't, he's not going to be here. Again, they've brought in coordinators who have committed to this regime and said, yeah, we'll be here. And you can say, well, that's because they think they get their head coach in waiting. No team functions like that. No coordinator functions like that. Nobody moves their family to Cleveland for the opportunity to put interim head coach on their resume. And so they have people in place. They have Bill Callahan, who opted not to interview for the offensive coordinator job with the New York Jets and said, no, I want to be here, and signed an extension here. So I think the Browns believe in the regime they have in place. I think that's evident based off of back-to-back seasons where expectations weren't met and they're still here. But again, Stefanski has 1 year left on his deal after this. And I do believe if he gets the team back in the playoffs, that the Browns will give him an extension. They'll reward him with an extension. And if he doesn't, the conversations gets difficult. But again, I just don't see a scenario where they say, where you don't have confidence one way or the other, like, no, we need to move off of him, or no, this is the guy, let's give him an extension.
All right, so another article that you wrote, 3 realistic free agents to add before training camp for the Browns. Defensive tackle, we've talked about this one quite a bit, Matt Ioannidis. Running back, J.D. McKissick. Linebacker, Kyle Van Noy. Who kind of grabs you as somebody that would make the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think it would be Matt Ioannidis. I think Matt Ioannidis has been at the top of wish lists since before free agency started. And, veterans can get a little savvy with how they navigate the free agency market. They kind of want to wait till after the draft. They kind of want to feel out content. Like, we saw a couple vets not sign until teams were separating themselves mid-season last year. I don't think Ioannidis is at that point of his career where he's going to sit out half the season and just sign with a contender down the stretch like an Ndamukong Suh or a Linval Joseph did last year with the Eagles. But I think he's been a little bit savvy, a little bit intentionally patient. But he's been a top defensive tackle in the free agent market this whole time. So I would say Matt Ioannidis is that guy. Again, I put McKissick on there because I don't think the third running back is currently on the roster. That will be on the roster on the final 53. McKissick brings an element of pass pro. He's graded out really highly as a pass pro running back throughout his career. And obviously his portfolio as a receiver kind of speaks for itself out of the backfield. So he does bring a different nuance than Jerome Ford behind Nick Chubb. And then Kyle Van Noy, again, we talked about not doing anything at the linebacker position other than re-signing Walker and Taki. We've talked about Taki. He's probably going to start the season on the PUP list, physically unable to perform after tearing his ACL late last season. And we've talked about Tony Fields Jr. is probably your starting Sam until that comes back. Well, if you don't want to start Tony Fields Jr. At Sam to start the season, then go out and get one of the guys who's been one of the better Sam linebackers for half a decade. Even if he's on the backstretch of his career, he's 32, but he's finished with over 5 or more sacks in 4 straight years. He's not the same player he was in New England, but I don't think the Browns need him to be. If they don't feel like, or even if they do feel like Tony Fields is their guy, it gives them a little bit of insurance as well.
Corey Kinnan from Browns Wire and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Jerome Ford, Browns RB2 to start the year. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Cory Kinnan from Browns Wire. Jerome Ford, second-year running back, talked about the biggest difference between last year, his rookie year, and year two. This is from the best podcast available.
Confidence. I feel like I'm a lot more confident in what I'm doing. I'm not unsure. I kind of know how to move around the facility. I know how to handle myself in meetings. It's not as nerve-wracking, like everything isn't new. So now it's just like coming in here and, going to the right people to get the right help, get the things I need.
Stump Mitchell in year two. What are his expectations? And how much do they change from rookie year to now, like you said, where you need to be and where you need to go? And what are his expectations here in year two?
Coach Stump, when I first got here, I think it's like a thing with the new people and rookies, he on you, tight, everything. And I think this year he kind of backed up off me, let me, do what I do, and he coached me up. And, it's been really fun, not being the guy that he get on all the time. Got a new guy in there, so,
That's a pretty good running back room, too.
It is.
I mean, you definitely – there's always a fight for the opportunities. And what are the biggest things that you've worked on, that you've been focused on here in the offseason as we count down the days to training camp?
Pass pro, knowing who to block, where to go, route running, and like Coach Stump always tell us, we know you can run the ball. He tell us all, we know you can run the ball. Just do you know what to do, when to do it, how you're supposed to do it.
Cory, the fact that the Browns didn't go out and get a veteran tells you how much they like Jerome Ford.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Jerome Ford is probably looking at a bigger workload than Kareem Hunt saw a year ago. So, Nick Chubb saw 300 carries last year. I don't think he's touching 300 carries this year. He's not touched the football 300 times this year, just as he's nearing closer to 30. And so I think Jerome Ford's in for probably close to a 200 touch workload. That's kind of what we're looking at. And by them not drafting a running back, by them not adding another veteran running back, which I think they still probably will, just because the depth after Ford gets really scary. But it tells you that he's the guy. He's the guy to take Kareem Hunt's touches, and there's not really a threat to that, the way we might have thought coming into training camp.
Yeah, and the running game is an important part of what they're going to do, even though they're going to throw more with Deshaun Watson. Along those lines, this is from the Game Day NFL. They tweet this out. Average time of possession in 2022. Commanders were number one, 33 minutes, 24 seconds. Bengals, a surprising number two, 32:15. Packers, 31:55. Niners were fourth. Browns were fifth with a 31:49 time of possession. That even highlights more how much that defense struggled, that they had the ball for over half the game and ended up 7-10.
Yeah, I think another thing that stuck out to me was teams like the Bengals, teams that aren't notorious for being strong running teams. Again, yeah, Joe Mixon's a good player, but they're known for their wide receivers. They're known for their quarterback play. They're known for their passing attack, and how teams still have the ability to control the ball through the air. And I think as we shift into what we saw in minicamp, what we're going to see in training camp, and what we're going to see in 2023 is that the Browns' offense is going to look different. But that doesn't mean they can't be as dominant. It doesn't mean they can't be bullies, and it doesn't mean they can't control the clock the same way they have when it has been pretty strict wide zone, run-oriented offense. But again, I don't think, and I think it goes back to a little bit about quarterback play too. So Jacoby Brissett taking his time getting to the line of scrimmage, throwing the ball, 25 times a game compared to more than that, running the ball quite a bit more as well.
Yeah. The thing is, teams like the Packers and the Bengals throw short passes that still eats up time, but completions eat up time. So it's a shorter passing game, and I think you're going to see that a little bit with Elijah Moore and Cooper this year. All right, before we go to break, this is from Dog Pound Daily. We're going to go back to the running back position. 3 realistic backs the Browns could sign. They go 3, Kenyon Drake. Number 2, Dontrell Hilliard. And number 1, James Robinson. Robinson was released and just couldn't get on the field coming back from an Achilles. I'm kind of with you. I like McKissick really better than any of the 3. I don't mind Drake. Drake's an intriguing one. He's got a similar skill set to McKissick, I think.
Yeah, I like Drake a lot as well. He's done some hybrid stuff when he was with the Raiders. He's done some good stuff when he was with the Ravens. So I don't see any negative downfall to a guy like Kenyon Drake who can do some nice stuff in the pass game. I think James Robinson's probably out of the picture. Again, I think his juice has really departed since he tore his ACL in week 16 of 2021. And I think that's kind of evident by him, being off of his third team in less than a calendar year already as well. So I just don't think he's the same player that he was since that injury. And he doesn't offer much in the passing game as well. So I do think they're going to go with the guy who has a bit more of a nuanced play style in the passing game than what they have on the roster already. Dontrell Hilliard's been here before. He's done some really good things in the passing game for the Titans as well. So I could see the argument for Hilliard. But again, I think McKissick, just based on what he does in pass pro, what he does as a receiver, is probably at the top of the list.
Corey Kinnan and I are going to take one more time out, other side of the break. Corey with the guys that he thinks have the most to prove in 2023. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Cory Kinnan from BrownsWire.com. Cory, I know you wrote an article for BrownsWire. Browns with the most to prove in 2023. Take us through who you think falls into that category.
Yeah, I think where I want to start is it's like, I think there's a difference between most to prove and make or break. Like, I added Jerome Ford on the list, who has a lot to prove this year, but is definitely far from a make or break season. Like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has a lot to prove this year. I don't think this is his last year. Like, this is his last year to prove something. But guys who are into this year with expectations on their shoulders, or some sort of placement that gives them a lot to prove. And you got to start the list with, I think, Jedrick Wills. Entering his fourth season with the team picks up his fifth-year option, hasn't lived up to the hype as the 10th overall pick. I don't think he's as bad as people tend to say he is, but he's definitely inconsistent at best. I see the flashes, the dominant foot speed. He's pretty good with his hands when he's locked in, but there are just those lapses, and big lapses at that, I would say, that can go games at a time. So that's definitely something that needs cleaned up. It looks like the Browns are going to see it through with him all the way through. And again, $14 million for that fifth year puts him at about like the 22nd highest paid tackle. So I think the funds are appropriate to where his plays kind of valued him, but I think this is the year to prove, like, yeah, it's either now or never in terms of long-term extension with the Browns. Perrion Winfrey, that one's pretty self-explanatory, and he's probably got a shorter shelf life to prove it. He's not a roster lock. So he's got to do it more immediately. He's got to prove it more immediately. Greg Newsome, again, played really well as a rookie. Really well as a rookie outside. Not so much like when he was asked to play in the slot almost exclusively last year. But again, he kind of advocated for himself. He fought for himself, and he's kind of put himself back in a position to play where his strengths kind of cater to it. So he's got to step up. Elijah Moore, change of scenery, high expectations coming out of the draft, a top 40 pick for the Jets. He's going to have the opportunity to see the field a lot with the Browns. Again, you could argue Donovan Peoples-Jones is the wide receiver 2 in this offense. I think I'd argue that Elijah Moore has more nuance to his game and the ability to do more in this offense. And I'd probably say he's your next guy behind Amari Cooper. So that's a lot to live up to. I mean, if he can give you 700, 800 yards in this year with the Browns, I think that's expectations met. Again, we talked about Jerome Ford a little bit. Cade York. His leash isn't going to be as long as it was a year ago. He was a 4th-round rookie. It's going to give him a longer leash than it will in year 2. If he doesn't figure it out in year 2, he could be gone after a 2-week span if it's a 2-week stretch of really bad kicking. So kickers, they get recycled a lot. And then, obviously, the big one's Deshaun Watson. This team on paper is ready to make a run at a Super Bowl. This team on paper has depth at key positions, and this team on paper has a guy who's seen stretches of elite quarterback play. But now it's time to do it on the field. And again, this team goes as far as he takes them. So they could have a dominant run game. They could have a dominant defense. They could have a dominant, secondary against the pass. But if they get how the quarterback play they got the last 6 weeks, they're going to go 9-8, 8-9. Lucky to go 10-7. So this team's going to go where that quarterback takes them. Yeah,
and that's usually the case with in the NFL. You need good quarterback play to get from okay to a playoff or elite team. Before I let you go, who are some guys that you think could have breakout years for the Browns this year?
Yeah, I wrote about this. All of the editors for all 32 teams wrote about it for the Wire networks. And Elijah Moore's the easy one. He's coming from having Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco and Mike White throwing him the football to a guy like Deshaun Watson. He's coming to a scenario where, again, I believe he's probably the second best receiver on the roster. His skill set says, and the depth of the Browns wide receiver room says he's going to play a lot of snaps. He's going to see targets. The separation data says this guy's always open. But the quarterback play didn't always get him the ball. So I think he's in a situation now where if he's still getting open as frequently as he always has been, I think that's a guy you got to look at and say, man, he's got the potential to really produce in Cleveland.
I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a guy on the defensive side, predominantly because of Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is going to find ways to get him in matchups that he can excel in.
Yeah, and I would hope. Again, I think this defensive tackle room is probably still a Dalvin Tomlinson injury away from being back in a pretty bad place. So, if they go out and get a guy like Matt Ioannidis, I would really love that. But you would hope that with Dalvin, with Siaki Ika, the Jordan Elliott's hanging on, maybe a guy like Maurice Hurst stays healthy and emerges. You would hope that improved defensive tackle play keeps him cleaner at a higher rate and allows him to just get to his gap without, guards in his face right off the ball. So that's the hope there as well.
Cory Kinnan, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Cory.
Yeah, as always, thank you so much.
Cory Kinnan, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff, brownswire.com. All right, before we go, the Guardians have a third rookie pitcher who will be making his major league debut tonight. Gavin Williams, 3-2, 293 ERA, 61 strikeouts in 46 innings pitched, a 186 average against. Take a look at the curveball. A 12-6 curveball that goes with his upper 90s fastball that touches 100. Also has a slider in that curveball. Williams was the first-round pick in 2021, 23rd overall, 16th ranked prospect in all of the minor leagues. He will be the third rookie in the Guardians starting rotation. Here is Terry Francona talking about him, and then Williams talking about having Bo Naylor catch him tonight.
Stuff is really good. Still learning, which I think is, we were talking about today. Our three young pitchers, they have not very many minor league innings, like less than, like when we called up like Plesac and Savali from mostly through AA, they had more innings. So they're still learning that, and that's all right. We just can't forget that. I think it's exciting. But I think we need to, like we told him, hey, just go pitch. And if we have to start making adjustments, we will. But let's see you pitch first.
Honestly, not looking forward, really. Staying calm, taking deep breaths when I need to. I mean, there's a lot of external noise, coming from other people, asking different questions. So just staying present, really.
How much do you think it'll help you having Bo as your catcher and just, work the win down?
Oh, it's going to help out tremendously. Him knowing my stuff, like what pitches work when, and him being able to catch me a few starts in Columbus was really nice.
So that is Gavin Williams, who will be making his major league debut against the Oakland Athletics at Progressive Field. A couple of hours. 7 o'clock is the first pitch. And again, he was the 15th ranked prospect in all of Major League Baseball when the Guardians called him up. Tristan McKenzie on the injured list, won't be able to really pick up a ball or do anything, needs to rest for 4 to 6 weeks, and then they go from there. So he will join Logan Allen, Tanner Bybee as the third rookie, who are all ranked in the top 100 in minor league baseball. So 3/5 of the Guardians rotation rookies, as Gavin Williams again will make his major league debut tonight. He was the 23rd overall pick, first-round pick of the Guardians back in 2021 out of East Carolina. A little older, but again, has great stuff. Fastball, touches 100, plays high in the zone, has a slider, and we saw that curveball as well. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.